Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Radically Real. I'm so excited to have with me today, and I'm going to look at my piece of paper that I wrote this down on. Dr. Rich Guggenheim, who is the Director of Legislation with Gays Against Groomers. I'm really excited to be having this conversation today, and this is going to be a great episode. So, Rich, tell everybody who you are and what you're up to.
Hey, everybody. We just found out I'm the director of legislation for Gays Against Groomers, and been pretty busy lately with our organization. Let's see, what have I done lately? Because it seems like it's been a lot. Been back in DC, worked on some stuff to make it so that detransitioners, those who are harmed by gender affirming care, actually have a cause of action and statute of limitations. So that was some stuff that I've been working on. Wrote a bill for that, trying to get that introduced into Congress. Then also have written some rules for HHS regarding the HHS just released a systematic review on gender affirming care, and wrote some rules on that to help try and make it so that there's no more mutilating and sterilizing of children and federal tax dollars going toward that. And then I was back at DC for the Title IX court cases. So that was fun. Got to be there and speak on that and go to the White House. So been pretty busy in DC. Also across the states, I help with legislation, and we organize testimonies in state capitals and state legislatures on protecting children, protecting girls' sports, and protecting parental rights, which are big. A lot of
Which are
people
all
don't.
important things, and it's interesting that you can, that someone could even possibly be mad at you or me for speaking about it. I talk about the women's sports things a lot on my Instagram, and I think it's horrible. What the fuck? Like, women's sports were created for a reason. It's
Well,
because
yeah.
when they're competing against men, it's not equal.
No, and a lot of people, they asked, why is a gay man speaking out about protecting girls' sports? And I said, first of all, as a gay man, I'm a son, and I'm a brother, and I'm an uncle, and a great uncle. So I have women in my life. My mom grew up at a point in history where she did not have the protections of Title IX and those opportunities to be able to participate in sports and academics. And she also didn't have the privacy that was granted as a result of that. Title IX gives women those types of things. And as a gay man, I also have rights that are based on the same understanding that women's rights are based on, and that is sex,
Hmm.
biological sex. And when you look at whether you agree with homosexuality or not, that is what homosexuality is based on, is biological sex. It's not a gender, it's not an identity, it's not how you choose to identify. And so when we look at gender ideology and this trans rights movement, it's fundamentally misogynist and it's fundamentally homophobic. So I stand up and protect that because I can see that the next step is what's already happening. When we talk about lesbians are being told that they are the problem. They're transphobic because they don't want to have men in dresses in their spaces. And that's the problem. That is the problem, is that lesbians and their spaces are being taken away. The problem is that girls are having their spaces appropriated, their rights appropriated. I say their spaces are colonized by
Hmm.
men. And
By
so when
men.
we start opening the door to women's spaces and women's opportunities being taken away by men, what we have done is we have stripped women of their right to bodily autonomy and their right to consent and say no. They're no longer allowed to say no to men in their
We're not
spaces.
allowed to.
They're not allowed to. You can see that with what has happened to Tish and what's happening in these locker rooms at places like Planet Fitness across the country. 24-Hour Fitness has the same policies. These gyms are telling women, no, you have to allow that man into your private spaces where you are vulnerable. And that is very harmful to women. And it's the same thing that's happening to men. A lot of gay men I know are speaking out about the same thing happening to us in our spaces as gay men. We have women coming into our spaces and they're telling us that we have to be inclusive. So what's happening under the guise of inclusivity and under the guise of equality is we are seeing our rights demolished, and we're seeing that we are opening the door to sex-based discrimination, the very thing that Title IX was designed to protect us against.
Which is crazy because, like, when you fight against this kind of stuff, it's like it's the total opposite of what they think that they're doing. It's like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, for instance, changing women's terms like chest feeding, birthing person, um, person with a uterus. And I'm like,
Pregnant person.
pregnant person. I'm like,
Yeah. Well,
men
here's
can
where
have
that
babies.
starts.
It's like men can't have babies.
Right. And I remember the first time a couple summers ago, it was right after COVID. I was at the Pride down here in Denver, where I live, and I saw Planned Parenthood was there, and the sign out in front of Planned Parenthood said, "Some men need abortions too." And I thought, when have I ever needed an abortion? Like, it doesn't happen. Only women can get pregnant. And so it's this verbal gerrymandering is what it is. And they've taken this language and they've moved the goalpost on us. And
When they've
one of the things
weaponized it, it's my way or the highway.
that is weaponized empathy is a humongous part of it. So we got to
Yeah.
understand they've weaponized empathy and they're changing definitions and meanings. And then one of the things that I see a lot of, and I'm going to call out street polar right now on this, and other people who keep saying there are only two genders. That is absolutely false. Gender is a social construct, and it has been used to replace the word sex. And the left uses gender. There's no such thing as gender. There's zero genders. There are two sexes. So when people ask you how many genders there are, stop using the word gender and start using the correct word sex. There are only two sexes, male and female. And when people start saying, well, what about intersex people? Intersex is a
Ugh,
medical condition. It
I
is a
hate
disorder
that.
of sexual
I hate that.
development,
Yep.
and you are still either male or female. Having intersex characteristics does not mean that you are a new sex. It doesn't give you a third sex. It doesn't mean you're transsex or whatever. You're still either male or female.
I know, and I think the challenge with all of this is you have, and I love the way you put that there's zero genders. You have all these people like with their pronouns, just these crazy pronouns, like all these different weird words and like z, zim, they, them, cat, meow, fuck, I don't know. Like there's
Yeah.
just it's so many different ones. And I think, well, the biggest thing I want people to know about me, and people that listen to the podcast know this, and now you'll know this, is I will respect people's pronouns. Absolutely, I will. I don't have to agree with you. I'll still call you whatever you want to be called, but I'm still not for medically intervening with children that are confused. Like
Yep.
it's not a fucking thing. It's not going to be a thing. I'm sorry, but no.
And that's where why are we pushing this on children?
Why?
Why? Yeah. And
Why are we
the thing
doing
is,
this?
and I say this all the time. If you want to, I say this, it goes both ways. I say this to the Christians, I say it to the vegans, I say it to the trans activists. You're free to believe whatever you want to believe, but you are not free to impose those beliefs on other people.
And that's the beautiful thing about the world that we live in, is that we're all allowed to think whatever it is that we want to think, and we can talk about whatever we want to talk about, and that's just it. But it also, and you know, this comes down now it's coming down to right and wrong. Like, why should we as women have to be erased to make a very small percentage of people feel comfortable? When I'm not comfortable. Why is that? That has nothing to do with equality. I am not comfortable with this shit.
And that isn't why they call it equality anymore. They call it equity.
Yes, which is what you talked about before this. So please tell everybody about that.
About my DEI story?
Yes.
Oh my goodness. So my job is I work for the Colorado Department of Agriculture. I'm a program manager. And I oversee some federal grants that we get to help certifying that we are pest free so we can export the crops that we grow in Colorado internationally. Excuse me. And we had a meeting back in November where we were talking about some initiatives for 2026 and some other things. And I had made the comment that it was DEI on steroids. And I was told by my boss to shut up. So that is when I decided to go to the Department of Justice about it. And I blew the whistle. And then a month later, I was placed under investigation by the state of Colorado for violation of undefined policy. And they did an investigation. I've not seen that investigation. All I know is that I am on administrative leave during all of this. And I suspect here in the next couple of weeks, I'll be facing a disciplinary hearing. This isn't just about whistleblower retaliation and the misappropriation of fund. It is also an attempt to silence me and shut me up, which violates my First Amendment rights because I do work for a public agency. So I still have those rights.
Yes.
And when you look at what's going on with DEI and people don't realize why this is so problematic, well, the second word in that is equity. What is equity? It is the redistribution of wealth. And so people ask, well, how does DEI and agriculture and what you're talking about with gender ideology with children play in together? And why are you so opposed to it? What every leftist revolution has done, first of all, is they have indoctrinated the children and used the children as the foot soldiers to really be the catalyst of that revolution. The second piece of that is that they have used your supply of food to control and manipulate you. Every single time you see these leftist revolutions, from Mao to Marx to Lenin, even to Hugo Chavez, all of these leftist revolutions control your children and they control your food. And so that's why this is such a dangerous thing that we are heading down. And, that's why they've tried to silence me and shut me up. I live in Colorado. It's a very blue state. In fact, it's not even a Democrat liberal state. It is literally run by socialists.
That's fucking well, we're in
Democrat
Canada,
Socialists
that's
of
like our whole
America.
country. Canada's probably the worst, it's the absolute worst. And can you also talk about the bills, that the Democrats voted against most recently?
Yes, we
Because this
have.
just proves the point of everything you just said.
Yep. So in Colorado, we've for 4 years have tried to get a bill passed that would make buying and selling a child for sex a felony. And for 4 years, it has failed along party lines. Every single year, the Democrats in the Colorado legislature have killed that bill. And a couple of years ago, it was legislator who identified as Black and queer who spoke out in the testimony in committee and said, I'm voting against this because this would marginalize the LGBTQ community. And I was shocked by her statement because um, are we admitting that there are pedophiles in the LGBTQ community, and if you make it a felony, that this is going to harm them? By all means, please
Because
pass this bill.
as soon as you said it to me, I was like, "This protects the minor
Minor
attracted."
attracted people.
Yeah. Which is
And
on
to
the
me,
flag, people. That's on the flag. This flag that you hang so proudly everywhere. Aren't those colors on the flag?
the baby blue and the baby pink, the powder
Isn't
blue and powder pink
that's
colors,
like the
that's that
minor
those yeah,
attracted,
that's their
like,
children's
guys,
colors. And
hello?
the plus goes on because there's so many other things, and they really are trying to destigmatize is the word I think they use, minor attracted people. And that is really kind of offensive to me that she would even say that and make that statement on public record in Colorado that this would stigmatize the LGBTQ community. Because as gays and lesbians, we had to fight back against the narrative that gays and lesbians are pedophiles.
Yes.
And we had to really overcome that stigma. And I was deeply offended by that comment that that legislator made.
Well, absolutely, because it makes an entire community of people who don't agree with all of it look bad.
It does. It really
Yeah.
does. And I think that's what the queer agenda is really about. When you look at queer, queer is not a sexual orientation. It is a political ideology rooted in Marxism. And these people who self-identify as queer, I like to say you're either a self-loathing homosexual and you can't accept the fact that you're gay and actually call yourself gay, or you're heterosexual and you're colonizing our spaces and appropriating our movement so that you can gain access to children.
Yeah. Yeah. Eh, you look at some of the cases where men have been in, like, family dressing rooms, and they're so clearly not even trying to transition, but they're in there saying, "Yeah, well,
I'm trans.
I'm trans." It's like, you're naked in front of a 4-year-old.
We
Like
need to just start calling them what they are and just call them peeping toms.
come on, guys. It is how people could even begin to protect something like that is I don't understand. I just don't understand it.
It goes back to weaponized empathy. We've weaponized this. Everybody wants to be kind and everyone wants to be compassionate, but at what expense? And that's where we really need to start asking ourselves, who are we willing to sacrifice? Whose rights, whose freedoms, whose protections are we willing to sacrifice onto the altar of inclusivity and equality? And
Well,
your rights
everybody's
should,
except for the LGBTQ 123 ABC plus.
yeah,
That's
and
who.
that's the
That's who.
problem.
Yeah, that's a
And
problem.
those rights that they want are coming at the expense of others. And they keep saying, well, trans rights aren't a pie. Yeah, it actually is. Because the moment you start compelling my speech, the moment you start invading my spaces, the moment you start indoctrinating my children, and in all of these states, we got bills in Colorado where if you don't affirm a child's gender identity and gender expression, you are charged with a hate crime, and the state will come and remove that child from your custody. And then we've also, over the years, have passed legislation so that teachers are forced to keep secrets from parents.
Yes, that's here. That's here too. That was
You,
a major concern
it
that
is.
I had with I had a clients in my chair when I owned a salon in Ontario. I just moved to this province, Manitoba, from Ontario, and I owned a hair salon there. And clients, like teacher clients, were saying, "Yeah, we are to assume that the children, this is in kindergarten, are a they them until they specify their pronouns." And I was like, I'm sorry, what? You want a 4-year-old, because that's when they start kindergarten in Ontario. You want a 4-year-old to tell you their pronouns.
How does a child even know that?
Well, the other thing they do is if the child wants to identify at school as the opposite sex or whatever the case is, they don't have to tell the parents because they're protecting the child. I'm like, that's not a safe secret. That's not a safe secret. There's nothing safe about that.
Here's where that the problem with that is these institutions of education have been seen as a place of trust in our community. So these communities have trusted these institutions, and it's driving a wedge between the community and those institutions. And all across the United States, we are seeing declining enrollment in our public schools.
Yeah, because we're homeschooling. We're keeping our kids home.
And I totally appreciate that. I spent 12 years of my life in higher education, so I was always an advocate for education. But what we've done is we replace that education with indoctrination. And so
Yeah.
I say, if you want to protect your children, you got to get them out of public school and you need to homeschool your children. The other thing that's happened though is we
And people
are
think we're crazy for it. They think we're crazy for it.
listen, if a gay man who has a doctorate degree and spent 12 years of his life in higher education is telling you to homeschool your children, you probably should wake
Well,
up.
that's what I said to you before we started recording. I said to Rich, I was like, you know what's bad when the gay people are saying it's bad. Like, come
It
on,
is bad.
guys.
I would
It's
never
bad.
send my child to public school.
No, no. It's insane.
Even
There's
in
no
a
way in hell.
even in a conservative state, I would never send my child because I understand that the National Educators Association is behind this huge push. And for I just did a documentary. It's called The Death of Recess, so people can look up and you can watch that movie. There's a lot more detail in that about what's going on than we could possibly fit into a podcast. But when
Well,
you
maybe it
look
will be
at
another episode that we'll have to break it all
another
down after I watch it.
But here's my in Colorado, when I remember hearing the arguments about this bill when they were having it, and these teachers that are also legislators were saying, "Well, I'm voting in favor of this bill because I've had these types of children in my classroom, and LGBTQ children are more likely to be kicked out of their family's house and domestic abuse and all this type of abuse." And I thought, this is really interesting because teachers in the United States are mandated reporters. So if this type of abuse was happening in the home by the parents when a child identifies as LGBTQ, there would be case studies, there would be evidence, there would be statistics from law enforcement that we could pull to back that claim up. And there isn't. So one of two things is happening. Either teachers are failing in their mandated reporting requirements,
Yep.
or the entire story is made up because they are trying to advance an agenda that paints the parent as the villain and drives a wedge between the parent and the child. And that is the most sacred bond we have. This whole thing is about undermining the family, and the
Yes.
family is the foundation of society.
We're just not allowed to feel that way.
Nope. And this is where
You're
the
a bigot.
state.
You're a
I'm a bigot.
bigot. You're a bigot.
I'll hang that
So
up on the wall with
I
all the
am too.
other
I am too. I'll get
accolades.
a shirt. I am supposedly, allegedly a bigot.
Allegedly, yes.
I'm
I'm gonna get
allegedly
I'm gonna get that shirt. Allegedly.
I should get some merch. I should get some merch. I am allegedly a bigot.
Or you know what I could do? I'm gonna make a shirt. I'm gonna put allegedly on the front, and then on the back of it, I'm gonna have all of the things that I've been called.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Oh my god,
I
that's
might
such a
need two
good one.
shirts for that one.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like a huge hoodie. Fuck.
It
And
could be
we're
like a
laughing
pajama
about it,
set,
but
top
it's
and bottom.
so true. It's like if you speak out about any of this stuff, whether you're straight or gay or bi or whatever the case is, like, it's amazing to me the things that people say to you. And I'm like, how you guys are not seeing it. And of course, you're allowed to think whatever you want, but how you're not seeing this, especially what we now know that's come out in the Epstein files, is that this agenda is being pushed. How are we ignoring this now? Like, you just want to sit there and keep calling people conspiracy theorists. And okay, like, okay, go ahead and call us that. But the proof is there. We
You
have
know,
proof now.
the Epstein files isn't the people that are pushing for this aren't looking at the Epstein files objectively. I think a lot of
No.
people who push for the release of the Epstein files just wanted it for one name. And they don't care about the victims. And they don't care about who's actually doing the real harm. And, it's frustrating to me because I look at this as these are children that have been harmed. And these children aren't getting the justice they deserve. The victims aren't getting the justice they deserve because everybody's focused on one individual, and that is
Well,
not right. And
it's not right.
but when you start tying in the fact that Jeffrey Epstein was one of the people who was pushing for transitioning children and keeping children on puberty blockers and the cross-sex hormones, this is the same stuff that we're seeing right now in the schools. And this is the same stuff that we're seeing with the drag queen story times and the all-age drag shows and these groups that push, I call them pro-child mutilation advocates.
Yeah, yeah,
These
yeah.
groups that want to start sexualizing children and start teaching children about queer theory. In Colorado, sexuality is introduced at the age of 6 in our schools. And a lot of these medical professionals who were advocating for, even under the Biden administration, when we had the Biden administration, WPATH was approaching the Biden administration and saying, we need to remove the age limit on being able to start children on puberty blockers. Why?
That is so
Why
fucked. That is so
why do you
fucked.
want to keep a child in a prepubescent state?
Yes, exactly.
And then the other thing that I think about is our education system. And then, even the libraries, we have public libraries, taxpayer funded libraries, bringing in drag queens and reading stories to children.
I
Why?
think at some point it also becomes a little bit like, um, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, haha, we're gonna do this because it makes you mad.
Yes, it is.
You
But
know what
my
I mean?
question is, it's a lot of the times it's the white women, heterosexual white women, bringing their children to the drag queen story times
I'm an
and wanting to be
ally.
inclusive. So they
Yeah,
bring their children to our pride events.
yeah, yeah.
And I just ask these parents, why do you want your child to be a sexual being?
Well, and that's the thing that really pisses me off about all of it is that, okay, so pride is to celebrate sexuality,
Nowadays it is.
your sexual preference, if you will, and all of those things that are great for gay people. But why do kids need to know about any of that?
And they don't.
They don't.
I'll tell you something that this is really this is one of the things that I find so bizarre. The pride back in the day used to be called gay pride, and it was traditionally
Yes.
a day or an afternoon, and a lot of times there are smaller events that happen to have a march, not a
Yeah.
parade, a march, and
Yeah.
it was led by gay people, gay men, and lesbian women. And that was because we were trying to draw attention to the fact that we were fighting for the right. It did not start out with marriage equality. It started out with things like we just want to be able to have spaces where we're safe. We want to be able to go to the bar with our friends and have a place to drink and not get beat up by the police.
Yes.
We want we fought for non-discrimination in employment, non-discrimination in housing. We fought for the right to serve openly in the military, and then marriage equality came along. And those are the things that we fought for, and that's what a lot of these marches were for. We achieved all of those things. And by the way, we do not owe a single right to trans people. Not a single one. The whole story about Marsha P. Johnson is a lie. It is demonstrably false, and it is an agenda where gays and lesbians who did fight for our rights are being erased and replaced by this narrative. And why did they choose to replace the gays and lesbians who fought for our rights with a black man who identified as a drag queen, didn't even identify as drag, but they're now
Yeah.
replacing that story of his life and saying he was transgender. He wasn't.
He's
What he
cross-dressing. He was
was,
drag. Yeah.
he did drag. But here's what's really startling and something that we need to talk about. Marsha P. Johnson, Malcolm Michaels, and his partner, Tony Rivera, ran the Star House. And the Star House was a home for runaway boys as young as 10, where Marsha, Malcolm, and Tony prostituted those boys out in Times Square and sold them to porn kings in New York City at the time. boys as young as 10. So this whole ideology is built on this whole false narrative is literally built on a foundation of pedophilia. Pedophilia is in the DNA of the trans movement.
Yeah. And I think just even talking about the bill that they voted against is proof of all of these things.
Yeah, they will not criminalize buying and selling a child for sex in Colorado is not a felony. It's a misdemeanor. And for 4 years, the Democrats here in Colorado have voted against it. And this year, there's a bill in Colorado's legislature where they will decriminalize prostitution. Connect the dots, people. If we make it so that it is legal to buy and sell a child for sex, and we make it legal for prostitution in Colorado, you can now buy and sell a child. We literally just become Epstein Island.
On a greater scale. That's
It's
actually just
disgusting.
it's fucking terrifying, and I don't when the thing that blows my mind is that when these things are written into policy and people still can't see it.
They can't see it because they're not getting the truth. And I think the other problem that we see in especially here in our our society today, it's a social media society. I call it the microwave generation. So everything has to come to them in like 5-second sound bites, right? So they aren't seeing the whole thing and they're not we don't have a media anymore, whether it's traditional media or social media, where people are told how to think. Everything is about this is what you should think. And so they're programming people. And it starts literally in school. In Colorado, we have publicly funded pre-K. So at the age of 3 on, they're told what to think, not how to think. And we see that happening in the schools right now with these anti-ICE demonstrations where the kids are going out into the streets and protesting
That is
law
just so
enforcement.
terrifying to me. Terrifying. How are we not seeing what's been happening and then sending our kids into that?
This creates such an unsafe situation for our children. And I don't understand if the fact that you saw that your child was being taught about sex in a graphic manner in our schools, and if you haven't looked up these books, and these books are sexually explicit materials, and they're in your school's classrooms, they're in your school's libraries. And then we're teaching them about things at the age of 6 about who some of these famous gay and lesbian and transgender people were. Why does a child need to know that stuff? And then when they get into high school, we're teaching them to become social rights activists and go out in the street and protest. And this is literally the playbook of leftist revolutions. And so if you're not concerned about your children being sexually groomed in schools, are you concerned about the fact that they're being indoctrinated with this type of radical ideology? At what point in time do you wake up and say, I'm pulling my child out of public school and I'm going to homeschool my child?
I'm with you 100%. I homeschool my children. My daughter went to Montessori for the first junior kindergarten and senior kindergarten, but led by a conservative woman. And I knew that I didn't want to send her to public school. So I was like, I have to close my business. And I don't know, I have a thriving business, multiple six-figure business. Like I shut this shit down because there was no way in hell that I was going to send them into that cesspool, even a private school. They're all the fucking same. I was like, I am not doing this. I have to close this business. We need to move to a new province that's way more affordable because you can't live in Ontario. Like it's so expensive and it's like a liberal hellhole. And we moved to a new province just so that I could literally sacrifice my entire life to be able to homeschool my kids because there was no way in hell I was going to send them into this monstrosity of indoctrination. And people think I'm crazy for saying that, but I was like, it is fucking true. Like I don't how I just don't understand. I don't understand.
I don't either. And the thing that I've seen that's frustrating to me is I go to these school board meetings and I see it all across the country. And even in Canada, I've seen it. Some of the video clips happening in Canada where people are showing up to these meetings and they're saying, "Leave our kids alone. Stop teaching our kids this kind of stuff." And who is it that's always there? It's the moms. And who is it that's always there to counter protest? These radical, crazy LGBT, OMG, WTF plus people with crazy hair, bull rings on their nose, and probably haven't showered in a week and wearing masks and just screaming who knows what, like literally
The same
screaming
mask,
who
might
knows
I add.
what.
They're wearing the same mask they've had on for weeks and weeks and weeks.
So I'm sure
They don't
that's
even
keeping
wear
all kinds of things
they
out.
don't even wear a brand new one every day.
It's the same thing, right?
Yeah.
And so when you see these activists showing up to counter protest and they're really not doing anything but trying to bully and intimidate mothers. And I have asked and asked and asked and asked, where are the fathers?
I've seen, like, just as a Canadian, I have seen quite a few videos of fathers, standing up to the school boards. I've seen them.
And
There's
what happens
definitely
when the dad shows up?
oh,
These
there the
trans
cop
activists
well,
stop.
and the cops show up and they haul the dads away because they think they're gonna get violent. I was like, "There's only one group of people here that's ready to get violent, and it's
Yep,
not the dads. Not the dads."
exactly. And fortunately for us in the United States, we do have the First Amendment. So when these kind of situations happen, we're able to turn around and sue the school board or the state legislature and those types of things. And that is really where it's at right now. I would say in states like Colorado and Oregon and Washington and California and Minnesota, when you show up to the school boards and you show up to the state legislatures and they try to shut you up, and they keep pushing this gender ideology and this Marxism on us, the only way we're going to win this is in the court of law.
Yeah.
And in the United States, you got to take it out of the state courts. You got to file these lawsuits in federal court and take it all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court. And I've said this before. It's in the documentary that I said, The Death of Recess. The state is coming for your children, and you can either show up to fight for your child at the school board meeting and in the state legislature, testifying in the state legislature, or the state will come take your child away from you, and you will be forced to show up to fight to get your child back from the state in court. And by the time your child is in the state system and you're going through the court system, especially the family court system,
Yep.
you're never going to get your child back.
No.
Those kind of situations are so rare. And if you do get your child back, the likelihood of your daughter coming back as your daughter or your son coming back as your son is extremely rare. They're going to immediately send that child down the trans pipeline, and it's taxpayer funded. Our tax dollars are going to the sterilizing and mutilating of children in the foster care state system.
Well, you know
And
what's
that's why
interesting
it's,
about this is people talked about Trump getting elected in and how it was going to be, what's that show? Handmaid's Tale?
yep.
Uh,
So interesting, though,
it's
because the
it's
left can't even
opposite.
define what a woman is.
Exactly.
Like, how do you protect women if you can't tell me what a woman is?
Well, and
Hillary
it's
Clinton?
like, yeah, yeah. And the thing is like about everything that you just said about the state taking your children, that's some Handmaid's Tale shit, guys. That's what that is.
Yeah. It's the hypocrisy of all of this that I don't understand. The left is like, oh, ICE is coming in and they're tearing apart families. Like, and what do you think happens when you come in and you take a child away from its parents because the parent won't agree to having their child sterilized and mutilated?
Well, because they couldn't see a nuance there. They wouldn't. They're incapable of seeing that.
That's
They
considered
don't see that.
protection.
Yeah, of course it is. Of course it is. I Here's the thing with the whole ICE thing. I think that the immigrants need to go. They do. They need to go. You got to get the illegal immigrants. Sorry, illegal immigrants need to go.
Illegal. Yep.
They need to go. It's not fair. I'm a dual citizen, so I'm Canadian American. So I do care about what's happening there, and my children are also dual citizens. So it's important for me. We could end up there one day, but now I can't remember where I was going with this. I lost my train of thought. I
Hey,
remember
with
now.
that.
I remember now. I remember now. It's because I have this fucking cold, man. God, if I sound weird, guys, that's why I have a nasty cold. I just lost my train of thought again. No, I remember. I remember. Jesus Christ. Let's just get on with it. So I agree with them taking illegal immigrants out. I agree with the force in which it's happening. I don't, but the reason the force is happening the way that it's happening is because people are trying to impede on the ICE agents. What do you think
Yeah,
is going to
it is
happen when
so
you're
true.
when you're
Yep.
impeding on law enforcement? So it's like, again, I can see the nuance of this situation because it's like, yes, they need to go. ICE is doing their job, but the force is coming in when you have these people that are trying to impede what they're doing. It's like,
You know what's so funny is I don't know if you've seen this clip on social media. I'm trying to remember where it was, but it's probably Minnesota. And I think Minnesota is the exception to the rule. But this white Karen decided that she just wanted to come up to ICE agents who were conducting their business and start attacking them verbally and recording them. And she's going off on them. And so the two people that were the ICE agents walk up to her and like, we're trying to arrest person who was a pedophile and had convicted and was also committed murder. And she's going off on it. And the two guys who are going off on her were gay and black. I'm like, oh, the white woman just got owned. And, it's so crazy to me that the people who are starting to speak up about this, and I have gay black friends also, and it's so weird because if you speak out and you go against the narrative and you say anything that is not in alignment with the LGBT, OMG, WTF plus, or the Democrats or the liberals, because they like to tell black people you got to vote this way, you got to think this way, and they tell the same thing to the gay people. And if you speak out against that, then all of a sudden, my friends that are black and they're gay, they're like, "Oh, you're a Uncle Tom," or they call them things like that. And they've called me all kinds of things too. I've been literally called a traitor because apparently diversity and inclusion and tolerance and acceptance and all of that stuff only applies if you agree.
Yes, exactly,
So
exactly.
they're hypocrites. And the
Yes.
thing that is really interesting to me is, as a gay man who grew up in the 80s, I fought for the right to live authentically. I fought for the right to be myself. And I didn't want to have to fit in. I didn't want to be told who I could be. And now that is exactly what the Democrat Party and the Liberal Party has become. And they've done it to people of color, and they're doing it to the gays and lesbians. And so we get called all kinds of things. That is actually where the story for my book came from. I was doing a radio show one day, and I called these liberal gays and lesbians slaves on the rainbow plantation.
Yep, yep.
And I got roasted by a trans media personality in a news outlet here in the States, and just how racist that would be. By the way, I was dating a black guy at the time, so I don't know if I
So
am in a
racist.
relationship with a black guy, how can I be
Yeah,
racist? Oh,
yes.
but I was
So
I was just
racist.
terrible because I use that terminology. And so I started thinking about this, and I'm like, no, it really is, because you're not capable of thinking for yourself. You're not allowed to speak for yourself. You have to fall in line. This isn't about this whole thing is about conformity, and it's about assimilation. And if you go against that narrative, you're an evil person. And so when I wrote the book, I literally dedicated the book to that journalist. And I said to the journalist, and I said, and all the other trans rights activists who inspire me every single day. And I have not had a hit piece written on me since then.
So funny. That is so funny. But it's true, and it's like you could be against just this indoctrination piece, and people will still call you a racist, a bigot. If you say that you would vote conservative, you're a racist, you're a this, you're a that. It's just like you could be a black person that's a Republican or a conservative, and they think you're racist.
Here's the problem that I see with so much of this ideology. When we talk about acceptance and inclusion, and they call it the paradox of intolerance. Cool, I'm all for that. There are absolutely certain things that we as a society should be intolerant of. Mutilating and sterilizing children should be one of them.
That's
Sexualizing
not
children
happening.
should
What do
be
you
one of
mean?
them.
That's not happening.
Exactly, right? But
It's not
here's the other
happening.
thing that I would say: when you look at the polling, the idea of keeping boys out of girls' sports, the idea of not cutting off the healthy body parts of children or putting them on chemicals that do permanent damage to their body is not a far right ideology.
Until
And
they
when
can
you
make
look
an
at
informed choice. Like, why are we
exactly,
doing this to people? How they're claiming this is far right?
the polling data doesn't show that. The polling data shows that 2/3 of Democrats, 65 to 70% of Democrats agree with this. And so what's really happening is this is the far left taking this narrative as far to the extreme as they possibly can. And anybody who is not willing to agree with it is now labeled as far right. So again, it's verbal gerrymandering. It is a weaponization of empathy. And this is a guilt tactic that they use to try and shame anybody who speaks out against it. And I would just say to the people who identify as liberal and the people who identify as Democrats who agree with this, you need to become loud.
Well,
You
speak
need to
about
get
it.
real loud, because if you don't, your entire party is going to fall apart. I am a lifelong Democrat. I voted for Barack Obama twice. I actually voted for Jill Stein, not Hillary Clinton, because I was that far to the left. I was a Bernie-crat. So if you can take someone who is a lifelong Democrat and this gender ideology being pushed that is harming children, harming gays and lesbians, and harming women's rights becomes the wedge issue for me that eventually drives me out. And I can count so many other gays and lesbians and women. In fact, when I'm back in DC, the most prominent people who are speaking out against this ideology are the gays, are the lesbians, and are the liberals. It's not the conservatives that are pushing this. It's the liberals. It's people like Democrats for an Informed Approach to Gender. It's the LGB Alliance. It's the LGB Courage Coalition. It's Gays Against Groomers. So it's all of these people who are coming together and speaking out against this because we see that the harm that this is doing to us. And when you have 2/3 of the Democrats that are registered Democrats and the liberals saying and progressives saying this is wrong to do this to children and to women, then it is time for the elected people. It is time for these organizations like the Human Rights Campaign. It is time for people like Hillary Clinton and Ariana Presley and all of these people that are in the UN who just voted to say that trans women are women. No, they're not. They just voted to take away the rights of women
Yeah.
around the world.
Yeah. The feminists.
So yeah, this is
The
where it's time
feminists of
for the
the
women.
world.
So if you're a Democrat and you're a liberal and you don't want to see your party just get absolutely decimated, it's time for you to stand up. And it's time for you to start primarying out these people in office and voting these people in office out. You can't protect women if you can't define what a woman is.
Yeah, I
And
know.
they're gaslighting you. And if you don't want to see your party decimated, because there are a lot of great things that I think that both can come out of both parties. You know, I
For
work in
sure.
policy and I say every time I go to the state capitol or every time I go to Washington, D.C. and I walk into those buildings, I say, I have no friends and I have no enemies. They're a good policy and they're a
And
bad
there's bad
policy. And it doesn't
policy.
matter what party it comes from.
Well, and that's what people need to start looking at is policy instead of looking at person.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's the only way we're going to change this is when we start looking at the policy. And you got to ask yourself, how is this going to impact my children? How is this going to impact my wife? How is this going to impact my daughter? And until we start thinking like that, we're not going to solve any of these problems. And it's not a far right issue. And I really, really want to encourage the liberals, the progressives, the Democrats. You got to fight back against this because this is going to destroy your party. We're seeing that. This has become the issue that is driving people to the Republicans and the conservative parties because
100% it
they're the
is.
only ones saying anything about it.
Yeah.
Both my state senators are Democrats. I have talked to both of them. They don't want to hear it. Why are we letting 30% of the population decide the your own party? You're the minority. Why are we letting a vocal radical minority drive your party off the rails?
It's insane. Like, it's absolutely insane. I just don't.
It's where the money's behind it. You know, before we were talking, I was saying this is something that's a lot more sinister. We think this is just like the Democrats. It's the World Health. It's WHO. It's the World Economic Forum. It's the United Nations, and then it's funded by people like Martine Rothblatt, the Pritzker family, the Pat Strikers of the world, the Jared Polises and the Tim Gills of the world, and these billionaires are funding it. And of course, you've got the medical institutions and the world medical institutions are behind this, and you've got the pharmaceutical industries behind this, and they're the ones that are pumping in this money. And this is, I think, going to go down in history as worse than the opioid crisis. I think this is going to be seen as one of the worst human rights atrocities in human history. And it was funded by the establishment. And it's the same people that you see on that Epstein's list.
Well, and that's, I've been doing some content around the Epstein files lately, and it's just so interesting that there's bad people from both sides on the list. But if you, like, I had posted that Roseanne Barr clip and everyone's like, she voted for Trump and she's MAGA and he's at the top of this and blah, blah, blah. It's like, oh man, you guys have no fucking clue. You guys have no fucking clue.
They don't. And I think it's just a complete distraction. And the thing is that they
It
never put
is.
how Trump is mentioned in the Epstein files into context. Why is that?
Why were the files not released under the Biden administration?
Or the Clinton administration or the Obama administration?
Why were they not released then? And then someone commented, you can't release files on a ongoing investigation.
Well, we just did. Right? Isn't that what we just
Like,
did? It's just crazy to me.
I'm like,
Well,
what?
it's all about they don't want justice for the victims. There's only one name that they care about. And it's frustrating because we're talking about children.
Well, and that's the issue. Like, I had made a really funny video with I was pretending to be Pam Bondi. and I put all these blonde extensions in, and, like, I can't believe the way that it's being handled by the Department of Justice when you looked at what happened the other day when she wouldn't even turn around and look at the survivors, or the victims or whatever you wanna call them. It's just like everyone is bad in this scenario, that anyone that was involved in any of this stuff, left, right, up, down, north, south, east, west, they're all bad. They're all bad. And again, I have not seen anything incriminating against Trump that I can find. He's mentioned 4,000 and some odd times. People are like, he's mentioned a million times. It's like, you obviously haven't gone to the files and combed through them to actually see
Well,
this.
they're not going to. They're just going to listen to what it is they're told to say, and they're just going to repeat the same talking points because
Well,
they're not capable of thinking critically.
and that's the thing. If I'm so mega, then why am I, saying, Pam Bondi, what the fuck are you doing? It's just like we had talked about earlier. I would vote right. I voted conservative in the last election. I do lean right. I don't deny that. But I'm smart enough to see that everyone here is fucking involved. It's not right versus left, people. You need to realize this.
That's exactly the bottom line. This is not right versus left. This is right versus wrong.
Yes,
And it's
exactly.
time for us to take a stand and protect the children. And I think that's one of the things, even though I do now identify with more conservative politics, only
Because we look
because
at policy,
we look at policy and
not
who's writing the
people.
policy, who's advancing the policy, who's supporting the policy that protects children, protects women, and protects parental rights. It's the conservative parties right now. It's not the
Yeah,
Democrats. They're the ones
exactly.
trying to tear apart families. And
Exactly.
so if the Democrats would wake up to this and stop pretending that it's just red herrings and ad hominem attacks,
Yep. Yep.
and if they would actually be sincere for a moment and honest and have some sort of integrity, they would say this isn't about alleged accusations against somebody that there's no evidence to support. This is about getting to the bottom of this. This is about getting to the truth. And this is about protecting the children. And I'm going to say the same thing to Pam Bondi. Pam Bondi needs to grow a spine and she needs to actually do something. And if she's not, then it's up to President Trump to replace her
Well, and the
today.
thing is who is she protecting? Who are you
She's
protecting?
protecting the pedophiles. She's not
That's it.
doing her job. There's
She's
no
not doing
justice
her
in the
fucking
Justice
job.
Department.
The video is really funny. It's on Instagram. I don't know if you'll be able to see it, but I clipped in all these extensions, and I did like a Snapchat filter of an old man, and I said, Miss Bondi, how many of Epstein's co-conspirators have you indicted? And then I put those extensions in, and I will answer the question how I want to answer the question. Like, you're not answering the questions, honey.
Yep.
You're beating around the bush. You're not fucking answering the questions. I don't give a fuck if you're Trump's Department of Justice and he puts you there or whatever the case is. You're being a cunt, and that's just what it is. Like, you don't have to be right or left to see that. And if people
Exactly.
keep putting that in the forefront of their views, they'll never be able to protect anybody because they're not willing to see this is not right versus left, and it's bad. It is right
And when
versus
she
wrong.
says that if we prosecuted the people who are in there, the whole system would collapse, well, then by all means, let the system collapse.
Let it collapse. Replace
Because we
them.
can't protect the system at the expense of children's innocence.
And like,
It just comes down to that.
well, and then like, JD, where are you, bud? Your wife's pregnant right now. You're about to bring a child into this world. Like,
You wonder where their priorities are. I think, I don't have children, but I think I do know plenty of gays and lesbians that do. And it's always when they say they become parents, they said this just changes your whole perspective on the
it
world.
does.
And I just wonder, does Pam Bondi have children?
I looked that up because I was very curious about the way she was behaving, and it does not appear that she has children. So
How do you have such a lack of empathy towards this type of thing being done to a child? And I don't know. It just, to me, it's all gross. I don't care if you're out there and you're part of Parasol Patrol and you're protecting the drag queens who are reading stuff to children and dancing and twerking in front of children and sexualizing children, or if you're Pam Bondi and you're justifying pedophilia and the rape and abuse of a child. This has to stop. I don't care if you're the Democrats in Colorado's legislature who refuse to criminalize child sex abuse. This has to stop, and it's a problem across the board. It's across this political spectrum. We all need to rise up and stand up and say, We're not going to harm children. And this ideology that's running behind all of this gender ideology, this trans rights activism, it is rooted in pedophilia. And it is time to root it out. And it's
They're so
disturbing,
brainwashed they can't see it.
they don't see it. They can't connect the dots. They can't see how this goes all the way back to what we're teaching children in school. And they literally start exposing children to this at the age of 2, because part of what they talk about trans rights is the best time to start transitioning a child is at the age of 3.
Well, 'cause
Why?
they can make
What does a
they can
child
make
look
up
like
their
at
own
3?
minds at that age. I saw something on Gays Against Groomers, and it was someone at a pride, and they had their child there, and they're like, "Oh, yeah, she came out as trans at 18 months," and I was like,
Do they even
I haven't
they
I
even
have
speak at 18 months?
I have an 18-month-old, and, I'm sorry, but no. No.
Yeah,
That's
you know,
false. You're fucking crazy. That didn't happen, or maybe in your deluded mind it happened, but that's fucked.
it's so crazy to me because I remember when I was younger, obviously I don't remember much from 18 months. But when I was younger, I wanted to be a lot of things. I wanted to be a doctor, but that's back in the days when Emergency was on TV. I don't know if you had that show up in Canada, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I want to be a doctor." Well, yeah, I guess I kind of fulfilled that, right?
Yeah, yeah,
But
totally,
I was like, "I'm
totally.
gonna wear a stethoscope, and I'm gonna have a doctor's coat, and I'm gonna be working in a hospital." Thankfully, I avoided all of that. COVID really pushed me out. Um, so,
Trust
but
me, I
I
know.
also was at one point in time, I wanted to be an astronaut because I think space is fascinating. I was like, I'm going to be an astronaut, to the point where I called NASA and I'm like, what do I have to be an astronaut? And they told me, and I was like, oh, that's a lot of school. So
You're
maybe
like,
not.
maybe I don't wanna
Yeah,
be.
I don't
Well,
want to
that's
go to
the
school for
thing.
that long.
Kids change their mind all the time.
Exactly.
Like, when I
I
do
was gonna
the
be I love dinosaurs, so I was gonna be an archaeologist, and, and then, of course, that's when Indiana Jones and all of that stuff was super popular, and
yeah,
I thought,
yeah,
"Man,
totally.
I"
I wanna do
and
this, I
that's
wanna
like
do that.
kids have imaginations, and I
That's
think
like
that
my
it's
daughter,
perfect.
she says, "I wanna be" first she wanted to be a pizza maker, then she wanted to be a pet doctor, then she wanted to be a hairstylist, and then she has suggested, being an astronaut as well. It's our party planner, she's talked about that. It's just like, "Guys, we can't say because, if my son says, 'I wanna be a hairstylist,' does that mean he's gay?"
No.
Exactly,
Look, there's
like,
no
and he's
right way or
4.
wrong way to be a boy or a girl, right?
Yeah,
Like, I was very much that feminine little boy. I when I was in school, I remember being in elementary school, and I did not play sports with the boys. I hung out on the swings with the girls.
yeah, yep,
You know? So and I like to do the dancing thing. I don't have any dance moves at all, but I liked playing with the girls, and I liked doing the girly things, and I didn't like doing the boy things because I just was like, boys going out and playing and coming back into the classroom after lunch recess, and they're all sweaty and smelly. I'm like, "Ugh,
You're like,
gross."
I don't like this."
No, so I was very feminine, and I love the fact that my mom taught me how to cook and how to sew and do all of these types of things that I'm very thankful for now. If like my pants get a hole in them, I can fix them.
Yeah, for
But at the
sure.
same time, I'm also thankful for the fact that I had a grandpa who taught me how to work on cars. I love old cars. I used to have an old Packard from the 1950s.
I love
So,
that.
I've had old cars and I love to do old cars, and I do enjoy going and riding bikes and going out and playing in the mud. Obviously, if I'm in agriculture, getting your hands dirty and playing in the dirt is something that's very close to my heart.
Yeah,
I
for
think
sure.
that's a pretty masculine thing. But though and my sister, bless her heart, she grew up with 3 brothers. And so she learned how to do a lot of boyish things, right? She,
Yeah.
as a teenage girl, used to wear overalls, bib overalls, and she's still very masculine presenting today. So I think we have to realize that this whole gender ideology stuff is built on regressive sex based stereotypes. And if you don't fit into those regressive sex based stereotypes, then your child is transgender. I would have been transgender by today's standards, and they would have rushed me down to the clinic and probably had put me on puberty blockers and wrong sex hormones and started the surgeries on me. And you know what? I am not a woman. I am not a girl. I am 100% a man. I have a hat. It's blue and it says XY don't lie. And I think that we just because I like to do girly things, or you have a girl who likes to do boyish things, doesn't mean they're transgender and doesn't
Well,
mean that they should be rushed down that pipeline. In fact, most of us, when we go through puberty and we aren't forced down this affirmation medicalization pathway, reconcile with our natal sex, and we are same-sex attracted. We're gays, we're
You're
lesbians.
gay.
And
Yeah.
so that's why I think this is nothing more than a modern day form of conversion therapy. We're just transing the gay away.
Yeah, and I was a tomboy. I was such a tomboy. I played basketball with the boys at lunch. We played sports. I was on the basketball team, and I'm so short. I don't even know how I played basketball, but I was actually really good. Um, but I dressed like a boy. And so much so that we moved to the States and I started 11th grade in the States. And when I moved back to Canada, because I was like such a tomboy before I left, when I came back, I was much more feminine. People like, they thought had like a boob job, and they were like that just because I showed off my figure, and I never did that before. But like, I was the biggest fucking tomboy to the point where I dressed like a girl. They were like, "Did you get a boob job?" I'm like, "No, I've always had those. I just hit them before." Eh,
Mhm.
like, imagine what would have happened to what's happening to tomboys now.
Well, and I think the other thing that's a piece of this is, when I was a teenager and even still when I was in my early adulthood, I was very skinny. My driver's license when I turned 16 was like, I'm 5'5" and I weighed 111 pounds. I was so small. And no matter how much I went to the gym and tried to work out, I just never bulked up. Partially because I was also a runner. So I probably just ate up any muscle mass that I would have probably gained. But I was so skinny and I was so small and I had serious body dysmorphia because of how skinny I was. And also being a redhead, of course, you get teased endlessly by your classmates for having red hair and being so pasty white, right? You're like,
I come from a family of gingers. I know you would never know that looking at me, but, like, my mom's a redhead, my cousins are redheads, so I get it. I get it.
so you have that body dysmorphia. And I think when you're going through puberty, that uncomfortable state of existence that you're in. I mean, I had terrible acne and I still cringe looking at some of those family photos from that area.
You're like, "Oh
You're like,
my
oh my
god."
goodness, dad. Just the fact that I had the Bugs Bunny tie. Oh my gosh, that was just
I I
terrible
had
stuff.
the I had, like, a Looney Tune vest.
Okay, so you know exactly what I'm talking about.
I had the
Yep.
Looney Tune vest, and then I used to wear, like, a Looney Tune shirt underneath it, and then I have pictures of and then used to wear these black shorts and these plaid, Converse.
Yep.
It's like
We were poor, so I had to wear Pro Wing shoes or like whatever we could afford that was super cheap from Payless. But there's all those things growing up where you're just not comfortable in your body. And I think that's normal for any teenager going through that stage in life. And even when I was a young adult, um, I still did running in college, so I still was really thin. I remember when I was in college, I was like 130 pounds. So I just couldn't bulk up. Now I look at that cheesecake and put on 10 pounds. That's what happens when you're pushing
bro,
50.
me too. Well, same. I'm gonna be 44 next week, actually, or this week on Wednesday. I'm gonna be 44, and same. Like, I could look at a chocolate bar and gain a pound. I so hear you on that. Fucking being
Is it
in your
crazy? I'm just like, at my age, I'm just happy to maintain my weight.
yeah,
I might be like
seriously.
165 at this point in time, but hey, I finally got bulked up the way I wanted to. It
You
just
know?
took all these years to get there. But when you're a teenager and you're uncomfortable, that doesn't mean that you're born in the wrong body.
Well, that's
You're a
just it.
teenager, your
That's
body
just
is
it.
changing, and all you have to do is just love yourself for who you are, and you're going to be fine. You don't need to do any of those other things to be accepted by yourself. You're
Exactly.
perfect the way you are.
Yep, and I think what we need to really look at is, children that are having these feelings. Parents really just need to, like, take a step back, let your child explore with their fashion, with their hobbies, with whatever it is, and if they still feel this way when they're in their late teens, early 20s, or even I would like to say mid-20s, because that's really when the brain is fully developed, and they're still feeling this way, then they can go down that path. But a lot of the times, those confused feelings pass, and it's like you said, they just end up being gay, or just like I was just a tomboy. I just was a
Mhm.
tomboy. I developed really early. Like, I have humongous boobs, and I developed really early. And I was embarrassed of that because I was the only, like, 3rd grader with, like, boobs, and, I always wanted to kind of, like, hide that because it was weird, And, I think that that's what made me sort of dress like a tomboy, because like, wear baggy shirts and didn't want anyone to, like, see my figure and stuff like that. But, yeah, I've said this before in other podcasts, it's like my mom didn't wanna cut my tits off because I dressed like a boy.
Exactly. Well, and it's so crazy even to me is growing up, like people think girls have the pressure, and I think a lot of them do because of how we've sexualized women and we've objectified women. And there's so much of that in the gay community. It's just, if you're a gay man, you're expected to have a certain physique and build. And if you don't fit into that, you're kind of not really looked at desirably. And so, unfortunately, for so many of us, we grow up with that trauma, and I think it's magnified for gay men too. Because if you don't fit that, then well, how do you fit in? Well, maybe you're trans. It's like, no, you're not trans. You're just not built that way, and you need to accept the fact that that is the body that you were given. You can control some of that through diet and exercise. I
Absolutely, you
understand.
can.
Believe me, being a teenage boy, I could put down the entire cheesecake and eat the double double from In-N-Out Burger and still not put on a single pound.
Me too, I wish I could go back to that time.
Me too. Although, no, I don't, because I look at some of that now and I'd be like, now it's not the weight that's a problem. I've got all this cholesterol and I don't know. Like,
Fuck, I know,
take care
I
of your
know.
body when you're young. Young people, take care of your body, because when you're older, you will thank yourself. But love yourself as you are and
Yeah,
accept yourself as you are. And when you grow up, you're going to look back on all of that angst that you had as a teenager and trying to fit in. And you know what? You're going to be like, none of that mattered. It doesn't matter what happens. Like, there is not a single person from high school that I talk to. I don't know if they even exist. 99% of them, I probably don't even remember their last name. What matters is that you love yourself enough to accept yourself for who you are and don't worry about what other people think. Their opinion
exactly,
of you does not matter. Your opinion of yourself is the only opinion that matters.
exactly. Like, I wish I could go back to a time when I thought I was fat, because now I am fat. No, I'm just kidding, I'm just kidding. Just kidding. Uh,
No, you know what? Even as I've gotten older, and I put on a little bit of weight too, and so I just look at this and I just think, you know what? I'm almost 50. This is what it is. If you
you
can't
know,
accept me for what I have and what I
same.
am, then I don't need it.
And
Like this,
I built
take it or
3
leave it.
children inside my body, and my body is not the same, and nothing is the same because I'm gonna be 44, like, I'm almost 50 as well, so it's like, you really do have to hit that level of acceptance, and, of course, if you're unhealthy, do something about it. Definitely not saying, like, "Let yourself go," but, it is truly at the end of the day, it's just like, love yourself, figure yourself out, and parents should be doing the same thing for their kids. They should be letting their kids figure out who they are before you start medically intervening and doing things that cause permanent damage. And if you wouldn't let them smoke, get a tattoo, drive a car when they're 12, you shouldn't let them put hormones in their body. Period.
And it really comes down to, I remember every single one of my siblings. There's four of us in my family, and we were all those young adults and those teenagers. Like, well, we're not going to get pregnant. And my sister even was like, oh, I'm just going to go get my tubes tied. And the doctor's like, you're too young for that. Well, if a child is too young to have their tubes tied, why is a child old enough to have their breasts removed or go through bottom surgery
Breaks my
or be put
heart.
on puberty blockers or put on cross-sex hormones? And those cross-sex hormones, I call them wrong sex hormones. They cause irreversible harm and damage to the body. And I think a lot of these children that we're doing this to also have underlying mental health issues that causes that. And instead of affirming that and then putting them on SSRIs and these antidepressants that just cause all kinds of other problems, the thing that we really should be doing is we need to I just look at what just happened up in Canada, up in BC the other day in Vancouver. You take a child with an underlying mental health issue, you affirm that instead of treat that psychopathology, and then you put them on SSRIs, which exasperates mental health disorders in many cases, and then you're putting them on wrong sex hormones. In this case, it was a biological male who was put on estrogen. Anybody who's ever been around a pregnant or menopausal woman understands the role estrogen plays in mental health. and the volatility of moods. And so that plays all into that. And then you create irreversible harm and damage to the body by placing them on these wrong sex hormones. And now you're just making the mental health problem worse and worse and worse. And then you wonder what drives them to commit these types of homicides and suicides.
There's a
It's
huge problem here in Canada in that they are so quick to offer gender affirming care or MAID, medically assisted in dying, before they'll offer therapy or get someone to see a psychiatrist.
that's not pro-life.
That is insane. It is
Yeah.
absolutely insane. I had talked about this. I would like to get breast reduction surgery, as I mentioned. Huge boobs, very uncomfortable. I've had, like, they just grew fast and furious, and they're still huge. So I would like to get breast reduction surgery, and you have to wait 2 to 3 years to get that. I have chronic back pain, like, there's indents in my shoulders. Like, it's a fucking problem. But you can get top surgery, gender affirming care in 2 to 3 months, maybe 6 months.
Yep. There's places, and it's in the United States, Planned Parenthood is part of this. They're one of the largest provider of gender affirming care. They call it reproductive health care. It's interesting they call it reproductive health care, but abortions and gender affirming care, so called, are literally destroying your capacity to reproduce. They will give children at the age of 12 in the United States. In Colorado, at the age of 12, you do not need parental knowledge or parental consent to be able to do this. And after a 20-minute virtual conversation with a provider, you can get put onto gender affirming care. You can get puberty blockers, cross-sex hormones.
Absolutely
The parents'
terrifying.
insurance will pay for it, but the parents don't know, and the parents don't have to consent. And Planned Parenthood oftentimes provides this. And there are literally resources in the schools where these children go where they can go get this type of private medical intervention.
That is insane. It's insane to me that we would put that before
Therapy?
someone like me, even just with the chronic back pain. Like, why should they get care before I get care? Why is that more important? The other thing, I made a post about this as well, is there was a case in British Columbia where this he committed these crimes when he was a teenager, I guess. He did something horrible to a 3-month-old baby. I don't wanna say the word, but it rhymes with grape, and drowned a toddler, and went to prison, and then decided that he was going to identify as female, and they gave him gender affirming care, got him breast implants, and moved him to a women's facility, and he continued to in this facility, they also allow, the inmates to have their children there. So they sent him to that facility, and then he was, abusing women there.
Yeah, I hate saying this because people think when you say, oh, you're going to think I'm crazy. I had a person in Massachusetts reach out to me a couple weeks ago about a story going on in Massachusetts schools. And he said, you're going to think I'm crazy when I tell you this. And it's like,
Actually, I won't.
I'm not,
Yeah.
because I've heard it before. It's all part of a larger pattern, and you see the pattern play out again and again and again, and you start to hear it. And it's like, I hate the fact that when I first started hearing this, I was just absolutely blown away and I was absolutely shocked. And now I'm kind of desensitized to it. It's like,
Well,
yep, I
and I think
understand.
that was part of the grand plan, if we look at this from, like, like a who's controlling everything. I think that is the plan, was the plan to desensitize us so that here's the thing, nothing's gonna happen with these files. No one's gonna get arrested, nothing's gonna happen. And what's gonna happen is that people are just gonna move on because the next thing will come and the next thing will happen, and then we'll move on from that because that's what happens. That's because we've been so conditioned and desensitized to these types of horrific things.
It's all part of the normalization of it. And
Yes.
then, this is where I think, again, it goes back to homeschool your children, get them out of the public education system, because that is nothing but an indoctrination camp into all of this kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Two, I tell parents all the time, you got to be on top of what your children are watching on television. If they're at home and they're watching television, you need to filter what they're watching. The children cannot make that decision for themselves. And you as a parent need to be engaged with that. And you as a parent also need to be engaged with what they're doing on their phone. What are they spending their time looking at on TikTok, on Instagram, on Telegram, on X, whatever their social media platform is? Do you know what they're looking at? Pick up their phone from time to time and do yourself a service, do your child a service, and look at what they're looking at. What is the algorithm showing your child? I personally, if I had a child, they wouldn't have a cell phone until they were like 16.
Same.
And that
That's what
cell
we're
phone
gonna
would be
do.
locked down so that the
Yep.
only reason they would have a phone is so that if something happens, they can
They
call
can
me.
call me. Yeah. 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 I'm so with you. Yeah. Yeah. Our kids had iPads, and I noticed just behavioral shit that I was like, I just can't, like, this is not good. And I'll be the first to admit it. It's nice. It is nice when they watch an iPad for an hour because you get an hour. But to their detriment, which I wasn't okay with. So I actually took their iPads away last May, and they're not getting them back. And the difference between the behavioral shit. It took a couple of months, but what a difference. And most parents are unwilling to take them away because the kids have withdrawal. They have withdrawals and of the way that they behave because you take it away. And it's like, well, that's the perfect example of why you should take it away
It's the same, when I was growing up, your generation also, we were outside.
all the time.
Outside. Go
All
out.
the
And,
time.
we were I don't know how my parents did it with 4 kids, but there are definitely times where they were just like, "Go out," and they would lock the door, right?
Yeah,
And it's like,
don't
"We're
come back.
thirsty.
Don't come
Don't come
back
back." Yeah.
in. Drink from the hose.
That's literally what it was, drink from the
Yeah,
hose.
drink from the
And,
hose if you're thirsty. And we would. We would.
we would, and you know what the thing is? My dad always complained about the fact that the shovels would disappear out of the garage and never get back. We had an empty lot not too far from where we live, so we would go build bike tracks. My dad isn't gonna see this probably, so he'll never know how many miles away from home we actually rode our bikes. We
Oh
stayed in the
god, we were the
neighborhood.
same. We were all over the fucking place. Oh
Yeah,
man. Yeah, same,
and
same.
we we did so many things growing up, and we were outside all the time, and every once in a while, like, they would give you, like, $5 and they would say, "Go buy yourself something at the gas station." Nowadays, $5 at the gas station isn't buying you
Doesn't
anything.
get you
We would come
anything.
back with soda and candy and all,
That
and
can't
we'd just
even
be
give you like a
outside.
2 for chocolate bar deal. It doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah. So, we did all those things and we had fun and we would be outside all day long and we got rough and tumble sometimes and those things that we did growing up is what the kids need nowadays because that's how you explore your world. That's how you become familiar with the things. It's how you become creative. These phones suck the creativity out of a child. And
They
I
do.
think you be home by the time the street lights are on is a great thing to go back to. And it was also back in the days, before cell phones existed, but we had landlines. But what's crazy is how our parents always knew where to find us. They knew who our friends were, and they knew whatever yard had all the bikes on the front lawn is
Is
where
that's
we
where
were
we
at.
were, 100%.
Yep,
And I think it's okay to let your kids be bored. Like I said earlier, parents have an issue with taking away the iPads because then they don't get any time, but it's like, yeah, but you need to look at what you're doing to your child. It's like my kids, they build forts, they go outside, they play, they draw, they color, they paint, they do crafts. They find things to do. Now we let them watch TV. We let them watch, stuff on TV that we approve. Um but it's like, let your kids be bored. It's okay for them to be bored. They don't
it
have
is
to be
because
doing something all the time.
yep, and for that was a thing for me too. And I look at it now. I think growing up, my parents tried to put me into scouts. I don't know why. I hated scouts because I look at what I missed out on now, and I'm like, dang, I should have done that
Well, I don't
because
know. There's some
I'm like you.
controversy. Isn't it Boy Scouts where there's like a huge pedophile ring, or was that a different one?
It probably is the Boy Scouts, but I had friends who did it. I'm like, "You got to do what?"
Yeah, yeah,
Like, that
yeah.
sounds like that was crazy fun. But, I think about if you have the opportunity to put your kid into something like 4-H or FFA or any of those kind of things, get them into those type of organizations and get them into those but I also say that with a caveat because I've noticed that even things like 4-H are super woke. 4-H is run by the universities, and the universities are just nothing but indoctrination for queer theory and Marxist ideologies.
Yeah,
But get your kids out, teach them how to my grandparents and my parents have horses. My parents have 23 acres here in Colorado, so we grew
amazing.
up with the horses and the cows and, um, those kind of things of being outdoors and those are the things that we need our children to be learning how to explore. And I think that if you can get your child into something like that, I definitely think the sports and the athletics are important, and I think that's why we need to protect Title IX because girls need those opportunities. And it's not just about competition, it's about forming relationships, it's about learning how to manage your time, it's about discipline, and it's about those things that come along with growing up with structure.
Yeah,
And if we rob that opportunity from girls, and not only do say Title IX is about protecting girls, Title IX is also about protecting boys.
for
Because what
sure.
happens to a boy who thinks he's a girl and goes into a woman's space, a girl's space, and then gets accused to the girl by the girls of doing something that maybe he never did?
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, that happens, and that's why we have to protect the boys by upholding the sex-based rights and sex segregated spaces.
And there's nothing bigoted about it.
Nope, absolutely not.
If
But go
protect the children, like, irks you or triggers you, you're the problem. You're the problem.
100%.
I know.
Yep, and it's also about, I say this too when we talk about the girls' sports issue and the girls' sports issue has so many downstream effects. If we start telling girls that you have to give up your spot on a team, you have to give up your medal. You have to give up that opportunity to be seen by a scout from a university who could give you opportunities for scholarships to go to a university and get an education. Without that education, you're not going to have the opportunity to advance your career and make more money. So this really has a lot of downstream trickle effects that are harming women. And I think the other thing that I see too is when we talk about this gender ideology, we're stripping children of their freedom to grow up and live happy, healthy adult lives.
Yep. Yeah, it leaves me a little bit speechless, which is interesting because that doesn't happen very often. It just comes back to how are they not seeing it? And you have these people that are feminists trying to push this, and it's like there is nothing about feminism.
It's anti-feminism,
It's
and they're
anti-feminism.
not paying attention to the bigger picture. I think again, they've been deceived by this weaponized empathy that is the tool of the left and those pushing this radical gender ideology and these trans rights and pro-child mutilation advocates.
It's true. It's true. And I think when people start, like we said earlier, when you start looking at policy and you really look at policy and not the person, you will see these things.
Yep. I agree. And I think that's one of the things that I would say a lot of people don't understand. How do I get involved and become aware of this type of stuff? And, in the United States, we obviously have organizations like Gays Against Groomers. We have Moms for Liberty. We have all of these, even the LGBT Courage Coalition, the LGBT Alliance. If you happen to be LGBT, there's the LGBT Alliance, and they're all over the world. They're based in the UK is where it first started, but I know there's Canada. And one of the things that I love is there's the LGB Alliance, there's the business aspect of it. And so they just target businesses and they say, from an HR perspective, from a business model perspective, how is this gender ideology and trans rights movement harming people?
It is.
And it's very harmful, and there's an economic cost to all of this stuff as
Mhm.
well.
Yeah.
And I think it's more and more people start to wake up to this and speak out about it, the better it's going to be. The sooner we can put this behind us. And I really encourage you to reach out to these organizations, do your homework on this, and take the opportunity. I just said this to a group of gays and lesbians. There's a Facebook group of about 14,000 conservative leaning gays and lesbians who oppose gender ideology that I'm in. 14,000 gays and lesbians who say no to gender ideology. It's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they keep posting the same stuff, and I call it the echo chamber. I call it the conservative gay circle jerk. Okay, yeah, we all agree, but what are you actually doing to change anything? Reach out to your school boards, reach out to your state legislatures, reach out to your elected representatives. And if you don't feel comfortable using your real name, use a pseudonym. But until they hear from you, and until these LGBTQIA plus organizations hear from you, and a lot of cities and council towns, and even I'm sure where you live, if you look it up, you're going to find that there is an LGBT community um, liaison, something or other in the city council, in the town council, in the county council. these types of organizations, get on them,
Yep, get on them, talk about it,
write
start a
them,
podcast.
call them.
Just
Yep.
do something.
Because until you get outside the echo chamber, things aren't going to change. And the more you make your voice heard, even if, like I said, even if you use a pseudonym, the more you make your voice heard. First of all, let me explain the process. You're going to lose a lot of friends in the process.
I already have, yeah, yeah.
Yep. But you also make a ton of friends in the process.
Exactly.
And, I've had so many of my friends at this point in time who are just like, I don't want to talk to you anymore because I think you're a bigot. And I'm like, cool, don't talk to me.
Yeah,
I love
think
when the
that about
trash
me.
takes
Yeah.
itself out.
Yeah, see, well, then that's just it. That's just it. It's so true, and
So
you will disconnect from quite a few people, but I think it is like you said, is when you speak your truth and you speak it boldly and you stand firm in that, you are a lighthouse and your people show up.
they do show up. And the other thing too is courage inspires courage, right? Courage is a habit. First of all, you have to practice it every
Yep.
single day.
Yes.
You have to be courageous every single day. You can't just be like, I'm going to speak out once, I'm going to send out a tweet. No, you got to do this every day. It is a
Yep.
habit.
Same.
But the more you do this, I am just constantly blown away. In fact, this last week I did a radio show here in Denver, and before I did it, there was a guy on one of the dating apps that are for gays, and he said, "I love every time I hear you on the radio, and I just wanted to reach out to you and say thank you for what you're doing and for what you're staying, for standing up." And I have no idea who he is, but he said that on one of them. And then just yesterday, I had a guy reach out to me and he said, I heard you on this radio show the other day, and I just want to say thank you so much for being a voice of reason within the gay community. I actually screen captured that and I sent it in a text message to the radio show host. I'm like, see, I'm not making this up. This is
Yes.
real. And there are gay people, but they need you. And there are parents, but they need you to show them the way and let them know that they aren't alone. And unfortunately, I feel like when this first happens to a lot of people, they're like, I'm the only person. And I remember being in that situation a few years ago.
For sure.
I used to perform in drag, and I remember right after COVID, there was a gay bar slash restaurant that used to do THC, the hangover cure. It was a Sunday drag brunch,
Yep.
and they have the best pozole. And so, I used to love going there. But then they started doing something once a month where they would bring in children to perform in drag. And, there's a lot of things that drag queens do backstage that are just not something that children should be exposed to. And, I I'll just say Coke comes in many different forms.
Yeah. Yeah.
Liquid, powder, name it. And
Yeah.
I just don't understand why people were thinking that, oh, this is something that would be great for children. Parents, your children don't need to be doing that. What parent thinks it's okay for a child to dress like that and then parade around like a stripper in front of adults
Yeah.
who are throwing dollar bills at them?
And then saying there's nothing sexual about it. It's like,
Yeah,
well,
that's
pretty
such
sure.
gaslighting.
Would you take your kid to a
Having
strip club?
been
Because that's what you just showed them how to do.
Yes, and having been in drag, I started having some serious questions about that, and then I remember going to Pride, our first Pride after the whole COVID, pandemic was virtual, semi-virtual with aspects of it in person, and so I was like, "Oh, man, I can't wait to get out of the house, I'm gonna go to this," and I remember showing up to the center on Colfax, which is Colorado's LGBT OMG WTF, mostly OMG WTF at this point.
That's a good
Their
one.
pride was all teenagers, and they're identifying as things like pansexual and demisexual and omnisexual. I'm like, what the heck does any of this mean? Like, I'm just gay.
Yeah.
And it was just all of these things that weren't gay and lesbian anymore, because for the most part, these organizations have completely abandoned and sacrificed the gays and lesbians to gender
One
ideology.
100% they have, and they're not seeing it. They're just not seeing it. And I think uh, eh, it makes the whole community look bad. Now, of course, someone like me, I can think objectively and see that that is not what is happening here. But for a lot of people, it does. It makes the LGBT community look bad, and
It does.
that is not. It's not all of them, and people need to realize that. I think uh, more people, just regular straight people, need to have more conversations with people like you, which is one of the reasons why I think this podcast is great, so that people can see that, like, there's a lot of people that feel the same way as me, that they're afraid to speak up because
Don't be.
it makes them look a certain way. And I'll
Here,
definitely sometimes I get nervous to hit post. I'm not gonna lie. Like it does happen. Like I have one post where I'm walking with this mug. It says fresh out of fucks, and it's just the mug, and I'm just walking to the couch, and it says men can't have babies. And you do sort of just like, oh, people are not gonna like
I don't
this.
even care. Like, my
But
ex account.
you just post it, say it, post it, talk about
Yep.
it, because it's the only way that it's gonna change.
And I even start using their own words back at them. When I talk about the colonization of spaces, and that really triggers them. And why is it so triggering to you? Do you need a blanket?
Well, and I think that's where they need to realize that, like, even saying something like protect kids, we're protecting children. If that triggers you,
You're the problem. But
you're the
they're
problem.
gonna come at you and they're gonna call you all kinds of things. Don't let that do not let that affect you. You speak the truth. And here's the thing, do they know you?
They don't know anything
Probably
about
not. Have you
no.
ever actually met that person in real life? And probably not. Do you really care what they think about you? Probably not. And if you're
Yeah.
really at this point where you're still seeking extrinsic validation, seek a therapist. And I don't care what people have to say, because the damage that's being done is too great for us to remain silent. And the thing that's the other, I say this all the time, you're going to get hate. And that's part of the weaponized empathy at this point. As human beings, we evolved to want to belong to a community.
Yes.
And so
Whether
that
you're
is
gay or
part.
straight or whatever it is, people want connection.
That's right. And so
Yeah.
when they try to ostracize you and exclude you because of your perspectives, and you start feeling like, oh my gosh, am I doing the right thing? Yes. The reason you feel that is because lizard brain connected and said, I need to belong to a community. And you're feeling that emotional connection loss. You will
Yes.
find your community.
The lighthouse. Be
Speak
the
the truth.
lighthouse.
You
Yes.
gotta be
Lighthouse,
that light, and the
baby.
light draws in. I like to say that the light casts out the darkness, but the light also draws in the moths, and I love sometimes the fact that I get the attention from the moths, if you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Yeah.
When you speak out and you get all kinds of crazy people, and I'm pretty blunt on my ex. I use the word troon. I'll call people trannies. I'll call them pedophiles. Like, I don't sugarcoat anything on my I say I am not from the South, so if I spill the tea, you know it won't be sweet.
Yeah. And tea isn't even that sweet in the States, just so everybody knows.
It's not. So it's one of
They
those things
call
when
it sweet tea. It ain't sweet.
it's not
It's
sweet.
it's
No,
gross.
it's you just speak the truth, and you know what? When they try to come after you, I just ignore it.
Yeah.
It's just noise.
Yeah.
And you realize that the more they attack you, the more noise they try to create, and they're going to call you names, and they're not going to have a logical argument. They're going to be like, "You're just a troll," or "You're just a bigot," or "Oh, you got a big forehead."
You're mega. You
Okay.
have bags under your eyes.
They'll
I'm
make
sorry,
fun of me
but
because of my
for
glasses.
44, I feel like I look pretty good. Like I don't really like maybe there's a little bit of bags, but like I don't know. I'm just kind of like I think you're wrong.
Yeah, yep, that's what I say. I'm like, "Oh, well, that's your
I'm
opinion,"
like,
and that
what
doesn't
are you talking about?
that's that's your opinion, and you're pretty narcissist if you think that your opinion does, like, matters to me.
Exactly,
I don't
exactly.
care, like, it doesn't. I don't know you.
Uh,
So,
it-
but speak the truth,
yeah,
be courageous,
yeah,
and the reality is, at the end of the day, for me, I look back at my journey and I thought, "Man, I cannot be the only person who thinks like this." It was actually Clarkson Lawson and Brad Palumbo who had a podcast similar to what we're doing right now, who are talking about this whole entire ideology stuff. Both of them are gay men, and they were talking about it, and that's kind of like, "Oh, I'm not alone." And they were talking about Gays Against Groomers, so that's how I wound up getting involved with Gays Against Groomers, and I think there are so many more people that are on this bandwagon, that are on this wavelength, that think the same way that we do. In fact, we know that this is an 80-20 issue. So you're
yes,
not alone. You're
yeah,
absolutely not alone.
yeah,
Find your people and speak the truth. And when you start speaking the truth, those other people that are out there, people like me, people like you, we're going to band with you, and you're going to
yes.
connect to us, and our voices become amplified.
And that's exactly it. And people are going to tell you that you're spreading hate and that you're a bigot and that you're this and that you're that. At the end of the day, it's like Rich just said, like and like I've said, be a lighthouse. Be a lighthouse. Your people will find you. You will lose people. That is true. But more people will find you than you lose.
Yep. And it's crazy. Like, I have a shirt. I don't know if you see my shirt. It says reality is not bigotry.
I love it.
I love the shirt too, but it's true because a lot of people are gonna tell you, like, "Oh, this is hate, this is bigotry." The truth is always something that people who are living a lie are gonna see as something that they are gonna fight back against it, and a part of that is because this fight that we're in is a spiritual battle.
Yes.
It is a fight against true evil.
Yeah. Like literally. We've just been shown the proof, people. We have just been shown the proof.
Yep.
Period. I think
So,
this is a
yeah,
great place to wrap up.
I
So,
agree, I agree.
I think this was really great. So, tell people what they can expect from you in the coming year.
In the coming year, well, we're gonna continue working. I am actually currently working on some more rules that we're proposing to the Health and Human Services here in the United States. We're working on banning wrong sex hormones for minors. So that's going to be a huge one. We're putting together the rules on that. I continue to work with the state legislatures across the country. This is our legislative season. It usually runs through about March. Some of them go a little bit longer than that. But we're working with states to protect children from gender ideology, protect female spaces in sports. And, I think the other thing is at the federal level, we keep working on this as well. Uh, there's it just doesn't end, and a lot of people think that President Trump's executive order has solved all the problems, and it didn't. It didn't. It's just an executive order. It can be undone. They can be challenged in courts, and as you can see, a lot of states are just defying them. So continue working on that. I have my book,
Yes, and I'm
Escaping
gonna
the
link
Rain.
all of your stuff. So I'll link the ways that they can purchase your book and find you on. I think you said, was it Substack
I'm on Substack. Yep.
and
So I got
X?
that. X. I'm on LinkedIn, Twitter, X, all the meta platforms. But I'm also, I don't know if I'll do any more of the traveling. I do a lot of traveling. So this, it's fun, but it does wear you out. And then I'm also starting my second book of Escaping the Rainbow Plantation. And in that, I really am trying to take this as a focus. So the first book of Escaping the Rainbow Plantation, I talk about how gender ideology undermines families as the foundation of society, but it's also corrupted 5 pillars I talk about: media, medicine, science, academia, and government, and how all of those institutions have been captured by this and how it undermines our society also. And so I'm talking
Coming from a
about
gay
gender
man,
ideology.
people, you need to realize this is coming from
As
a
a gay man, I
gay
say these
man.
things.
Like,
But in book 2, I'm gonna talk about, and I talk about specifically the harm of children that this has done and on a societal level. And that's why when people say you're a transphobe, I don't hate gay people. I don't hate trans people. I don't
yeah,
hate
same.
people. What I hate is what this ideology has done to individuals, to their lives, to their families, to our communities, and to our society, because
Yeah,
that's where the harm is being done.
exactly.
But in book 2, I'm talking about really focusing in from the perspective of a gay man and how this has I fought for gay rights, and this gender ideology is harming my rights as a gay man, and how it has done and what it is doing, and how really the most important thing that is in both of these books is the way forward. Because a lot of people are good at identifying the problem, but they're not good at identifying the solution. And
Yeah,
so I really want to create a roadmap and show people, how do you escape the rainbow plantation?
I think that's amazing, and I love that you're speaking up about this because I think that it's so important to hear from the gays because it 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 just proves that us straight people aren't like we don't hate the gay people. We all feel the exact same way. We feel the exact same way. And it doesn't make you a bigot. It doesn't make you hateful. It doesn't make you any of the things that people call you for feeling this way. It doesn't. Because the gay people, they agree. The gay people agree with us.
We agree. Actually, we keep saying, like, if you want to be an ally to gay people, like so many people say they want to be, you speak out against gender ideology. You speak out against this trans agenda. You speak out against these types of things. And we speak up about protecting women, protecting children, and protecting parental rights. That is where we need the allies, because the gays, we can't do this alone. And here's the other thing that a lot of people don't realize. A lot of us don't have children.
Yeah.
I don't have children. They're not my children that I'm fighting to protect. They're not my bathrooms that I'm fighting to protect.
Yeah.
They're yours.
Yes.
And so if we really need you to join our chorus
Yeah.
and raise your voices together with us in this fight against gender ideology, queer theory, and trans rights.
Yeah. And it doesn't make you what you think that it makes you.
It
So
doesn't.
you
And
just
again,
need to realize that.
even if people say that, do you care?
Because it's
Why?
not true. None of
It's
those things
not
are
true.
true.
I know myself. I don't care what other people say. And at the end of the day, when you know the truth, you don't care what their opinion of you is.
Well, and I always say, people that know me, and if you don't know me, you don't know me.
And I'm
It's
not going to let you in.
so simple. Yeah, and I'm not gonna
Yep.
let you in. You don't get to know me. You don't know my gay friends, my trans friends, you don't know anything about me. You can think that I'm a bigot and I'm hateful and I'm this and I'm that and I'm all of these fucking things because none of those things are actually true. None of them are true. And let them think that about you. Let them think that about you. Period. And that's it. And now it's today. And now we're gonna finish this up. Guys, we want to hear from you. If you love this episode, make sure that you give us a thumbs up and subscribe. Also, I'm going to link all of your socials below, so you'll have to send me all your links. Write to us. Let us know what you think. Let us know if maybe you're scared to speak up. Don't be scared. Let us encourage you. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today. It's been so amazing. I really appreciate you taking a chunk out of your morning for me. It's so awesome. Guys, if you made it to the end of this episode, we fucking love you. Thank you so much for being here, and we'll see you next time.